The air in my cramped studio apartment on the outskirts of Austin was thick with the stale Texas heat. Even with the window AC unit rattling like it was about to give up the ghost. It was 3 a.m., and sleep felt like a luxury I hadn't earned. The UE glow of my MacBook cast a harsh light on the scattered mail on my IKEA desk, a collection of bank statements and menacing windowed envelopes. Each one was a paper cut to the soul, a formal reminder of the financial straitjacket I was in. $50,000. The number ricocheted around the inside of my skull, a steady, sickening drumbeat. My path to this particular circle of hell wasn't paved with designer clothes or Vegas weekends. It was a quieter, more insidious journey, a series of seemingly responsible decisions that had curdled into a crisis. It was the student loans from a good but expensive private university back east, a car note on a used Honda that was more necessity than luxury, and credit card balances that had ballooned after my dad had a sudden health scare a couple of years back. I hadn't lived lavishly in Austin, far from it. My life was a curated performance of frugality. Tacos from a food truck were a splurge. My social life revolved around free events in the park, and my apartment was small enough that I could see my front door from my bed. Yet, the debt was a relentless shadow, its presence as inescapable as the summer humidity. It had all started with the familiar optimistic lie of good debt. The student loans were an investment in my future, the key to unlocking a career. Honored parents who had worked their whole lives and were staring down the barrel of their own retirement couldn't co-sign for everything, so I proudly signed the paperwork myself. "You'll pay it back in no time with a good degree," the financial aid officer had said with a practiced, reassuring smile. I believed her. Then life threw the inevitable curveballs. During my senior year, my dad's heart condition flared up. It was a terrifying time, and while insurance covered the big stuff, the deductibles and out-of-network costs were brutal. I'd slapped a plane ticket home on one credit card and helped my mom cover some of the co-pays with another. It's just temporary, I told myself. My focus shattered, my grades dipped, and the no-time repayment plan started to look like a distant fantasy. After graduation, I landed a marketing job in Austin. It seemed perfect. The city was booming. The cost of living was supposedly lower than back home, and the job paid enough to get my own place. It was the fresh start I craved, a chance to put some distance between me and my financial anxieties. For the first year, the illusion held. I was paying my rent, making my minimum payments, and enjoying the vibrant, quirky energy of the city. The debt felt like a low-grade hum in the background, a problem for future me to solve. But future me was now present me, and the hum had become a roar. The cost of living in Austin wasn't as low as advertised. Rent went up. Car insurance went up. My income, while respectable for a first job, remained stubbornly stagnant. The interest on the credit cards was like a parasite, ensuring that even after sending in hundreds of dollars, the balance barely budged. Tonight, staring at these statements, the full weight of it finally broke through the denial. The minimum. Payments were a fool's game, a way to tread water indefinitely while the banks got rich off my anxiety. This wasn't a life. It was an existence defined by what I couldn't do. "This is insane," I whispered to the empty room, my voice raspy. My thumb hovered over my phone, over my mom's contact photo. I could call them. I could lay it all out, confess the full, ugly scope of my failure, and ask for help. But the shame was a physical barrier in my throat. They had their own worries, their own future to plan for. To drop this bomb on them felt like the ultimate admission of defeat. A hot surge of anger coursed through me. Anger at myself for being so financially illiterate, for not understanding how quickly a 24% APR could spiral out of control. Anger at a system that saddles 20-somethings with the debt of a small mortgage before they've even had a real job. But anger, as I was learning, was a currency with no value. I thought back to a conversation I'd had with Brenda, a senior manager in my department with a no-nonsense attitude and a reputation for being fiercely competent. I had vaguely mentioned feeling stressed about money during a team lunch. "Debt's a bully," she'd said, not even looking up from her salad. "It whispers in your ear and tells you you're trapped. You can't just shield yourself from it. At some point, you have to turn around and punch it in the face." Her words came back to me now. Punch it in the face. Right now, I was just cowering. In a corner. A new feeling began to displace the despair. A fragile but fierce flicker of resolve. This 3 a.m. breakdown, this moment of hitting rock bottom in a lonely Austin apartment, couldn't be the end of the story. It had to be the beginning. Opened my laptop and started a new Google Sheet. The columns were stark and unforgiving. Creditor, current balance, interest rate, APR, minimum payment. My fingers felt heavy as I typed, each number a confession. Federal student loan, $22,000 at 5.1% APR, 230, month private student. Loan, $10,500 at 8.2% APR, 135 item month credit card 1, travel, emergency, $8,500 at 21.99% APR, 170 month credit card 2, medical, $4,000 at 24.5% APR, 80 month car note, 2018, Honda Civic, $5,000 at 6.0% APR, 210 Torren month total, $50,000. The number stared back, cold and clinical. The minimum payments alone added up to $825 a month. My take-home pay after taxes was about $3,100. My rent was $1,350. Utilities, Wi-Fi, and my phone bill came to another $250. My car insurance was $120. Gas for my commute was about $150. Student loan payments were $365. That left me with, I did the quick, horrifying math. After all the absolute necessities, I had about $865 left for food, the car payment, credit card payments, and literally anything else. My minimums on everything totaled $825. That left me $40 for the entire month. The math wasn't just tight, it was impossible. No wonder I was slipping further behind every month. This was no longer just about paying off debt. This was about survival. Brenda was right. I needed a plan to fight back. This spreadsheet wasn't a list of my failures anymore. It was a hit list. The first hint of dawn was beginning to soften the edges of the Austin skyline. The sounds of the city were starting up. The distant rumble of a truck on the highway. The first birds starting to chirp. A new day. And for me, a new war. I wouldn't just manage this debt. I would attack it. I would hunt it down. The first step was staring the enemy in the face. The next step was building an arsenal. I saved the spreadsheet, giving it a simple, powerful name. Operation Freedom. If this story is resonating with you, please show your support with a like. It truly helps. Have you ever had a rock-bottom moment that forced you to change everything? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to follow this journey to the very end. Now, let's get back to the story. The morning after my 3 a.m. spreadsheet confession, the Texas sun felt less like a warm greeting and more like a spotlight. My Google Sheet, Operation Freedom, wasn't a document of shame anymore. It was a battle plan. My first campaign wasn't against the banks. It was against my own lifestyle. It was a brutal, line-by-line audit of my spending, and the verdicts were swift and merciless. My daily $6 latte from the trendy shop near my office? Executed. I bought a cheap coffee maker and a bulk can of community coffee from H-E-B. My habit of grabbing a $15 lunch from the downtown food trucks? Gone. Sunday nights were now dedicated to meal prepping vats of chili or chicken and rice. My gym membership, a so-called investment in my mental health, was canceled. My mental health would have to make do with running the trails at Zilker Park and the ever-present anxiety of my financial situation. I sold my PlayStation 5 on Facebook Marketplace, along with a stack of barely worn sneakers and a guitar I hadn't touched in years. The $800 I scraped together felt like a king's ransom, the first deposit in my new war chest. The social sacrifices cut the deepest. Saying no to happy hour at the craft breweries, to weekend trips to float the river, to grabbing brunch on South Congress. In a city like Austin, it felt like opting out of life itself. I told my friends I was on a hardcore savings kick. Most of them nodded with understanding before heading off to do things I could no longer afford. The loneliness was a sharp, unexpected tax on my new mission, a reminder of how much of modern friendship is built around consumption. But cutting expenses was only defense. I needed a sword. I needed more income. My marketing salary was fixed, so I had to look elsewhere. I polished up my LinkedIn profile and flipped my status to open to freelance work. I created a profile on Upwork, lowballing my rates at first just to get some reviews. I started writing blog posts for a dentist in California and managing the social media account for a local real estate agent. My days became a grueling marathon. My 9-to-5 job was the main event, but my evenings and weekends, once reserved for decompressing, were now a frantic scramble of client work. I'd come home from the office, inhale a pre-made meal, and then immediately open my laptop to start my second shift, often working until midnight, fueled by cheap coffee. It was exhausting. But as my first few freelance payments hit my PayPal account, a new feeling emerged: control. My income, once a fixed $3,100 a month, was now closer to $3,700, and one particularly grueling month, I cleared $4,000. With this new arsenal, I returned to my hit list. I needed to decide who to attack first. I fell down a rabbit hole of personal finance blogs and YouTube videos, learning about the snowball and avalanche methods. The snowball, paying off the smallest balances first to get quick psychological wins, was tempting. Eliminating that $4,000 credit card would feel amazing. But the math was undeniable. The avalanche, targeting the highest interest rate first, was the coldly logical, most effective strategy. My true enemy wasn't the size of the debt, it was the 24.5% APR on that smaller credit card. It was a financial wildfire, and it had to be extinguished first. The strategy was set. I would continue making the minimum payments on everything else, but every single dollar I saved from my budget cuts and earned from my side hustles would be hurled at that one credit card. My first debt avalanche payment was for $1,280, the $80 minimum plus a staggering $1,200 extra. Clicking Submit Payment felt both reckless and incredibly powerful. I had just fired my first real shot. A few weeks into this new regimen, Brenda caught me in the office kitchen refilling my thermos. She glanced at the tired lines under my eyes. "Burning the midnight oil?" she asked, her tone neutral. Somehow I knew she wasn't just talking about work. I ended up telling her everything: the spreadsheet, the freelance grind, the war on lattes. She listened without judgment, then gave a slow, approving nod. She didn't offer pity. She offered intel. She told me to raise my freelance rates. She gave me the name of a local business association to network for better-paying clients. "Though, first 6 months are the hardest," she said, stirring her own coffee. "You're reprogramming your entire life. You're building discipline. It feels like deprivation now, but trust me, it will eventually feel like power." Her words became my north star. And slowly, the numbers on the screen began to prove her right. The balance on credit card 2 began to drop. $4,000 became $2,120. Then $1,500. Each payment was a victory, a piece of my future I was buying back. But there was one debt that felt different: the car note. The $210 monthly payment was manageable, but the car itself felt like a symbol of my old life. It was a money pit: insurance, gas, maintenance, and I was barely driving it, preferring to use my bike for short trips to save gas. More than that, it was a source of pride I hadn't earned. I remembered how excited my dad was when I bought it, my first real car. Selling it felt like admitting that I couldn't even handle that basic level of adult responsibility. This phone call was harder than any negotiation with a bank. I laid it all out for my dad: the full 50 grand, the freelance work, the plan. I explained that the car was a financial anchor, and I needed to cut it loose. I braced myself for disappointment, for a lecture. Instead, his voice came back, quiet and steady. "Okay, son, I get it. It takes a real man to admit he's in over his head and then do something about it. I'm proud of you for fighting." The relief washed over me in a wave. The next weekend, I cleaned the Honda within an inch of its life and drove it to CarMax. They made me an offer: $7,500. It was fair. My remaining loan balance was just under $5,000. I signed the paperwork, and they cut me a check for the difference: $2,500 Wadhor 37. I walked out of the dealership and took the bus home. I felt lighter. That evening, I paid off the entire car loan online. A pop-up read, "Congratulations! This loan has been paid in full." One of the monster's heads was gone. An entire account vanished from my hit list. Then, I took the $2,501.37 and made one colossal, beautiful payment on my high-interest credit card. The balance, which I had whittled down to just over $2,500, was wiped out completely, and I still had nearly $1,000 left over. Without hesitating, I threw that at my next target. The other credit card, with its $8,500 balance and 21.99% APR, I opened Operation Freedom and updated it with a trembling hand. I deleted the rows for the car and the second credit card. The total debt was no longer $50,000, it was now $41,000. In just a few months, I had wiped out nearly $9,000. It was still a mountain, but for the first time, I could see a path up its face. The exhaustion was still there, a constant companion, but now it was mixed with something new and powerful: momentum. I wasn't just dodging the bully anymore. I was punching back, and he was starting to bleed. The year and a half that followed was a masterclass in monotony. The initial adrenaline of my declaration of war had long since faded, replaced by the relentless, unglamorous rhythm of the grind. My life became a series of loops: wake up, brew, cheap coffee, work my 9 to 5, come home, work my 5 to 11 on freelance projects, sleep, repeat. Sundays were for laundry and meal prep. My spreadsheet was my constant companion, the numbers ticking down with agonizing slowness. I was making incredible progress, but the daily reality of it felt less like a heroic battle and more like chipping away at a mountain with a teaspoon. The first major victory of this long slog came 10 months after I sold my car. I made the final, massive payment on my last credit card. The balance of $8,500 was gone. I stared at the "Your balance is 0.00" confirmation on the screen, expecting a burst of euphoria. Instead, I just felt a quiet, profound sense of relief, like a soldier who had just secured a critical defensive wall. The high-interest debt, the true vampires, were gone. The monster had been declawed. All that remained were the student loans, the original sin of my debt story. Their interest rates were lower, less predatory. The fight wasn't over, but the nature of it had changed. It was around this time that the real test began. It wasn't a sudden emergency or an unexpected bill. It was burnout, pure and simple. The social isolation, which had been a necessary sacrifice, began to feel like a self-imposed exile. I'd scroll through Instagram and see my friends getting engaged, buying houses, taking vacations in Italy. I was happy for them, but a bitter, corrosive envy began to creep into the edges of my resolve. I was working 60 to 70 hours a week just to feel like I was standing still while everyone else was moving forward. One Friday night, after a particularly brutal week, I found myself staring at my laptop, unable to summon the energy to even open a client's file. The thought of another weekend spent alone in my apartment felt suffocating. "What is this all for?" a voice in my head whispered. "You're wasting the best years of your life to fix a mistake you made when you were a teenager." The temptation to just book a flight somewhere, to buy a new TV, to do anything that felt normal, was overwhelming. The next Monday, I saw Brenda by the coffee machine. She must have seen the exhaustion on my face. "You look like you're hitting the wall," she said bluntly. "I am," I admitted. "I'm starting to think this isn't sustainable." She topped off her mug and leaned against the counter. "No, it's not. Scorched earth. Tactics are for winning a battle, not for surviving a war. You've won the battle against the credit cards. Now you need a sustainable strategy for the long siege ahead. Your plan needs a line item for being a human being. Budget for it. 1. Dinner out a month. A ticket to a movie. Something. Otherwise, you'll burn out and end up right back where you started." Her advice was a revelation. My all-or-nothing approach was a flaw, not a feature. That night, I adjusted my budget. I allocated $75 a month to a new category, sanity. It wasn't much, but it was a lifeline. The following weekend, I went on a hike with a friend and bought a guilt-free burger and a beer afterward. It felt like coming up for air after being underwater for a year. With this new, more balanced approach, my focus returned, sharper than ever. I directed my financial firepower at the private student loan with its 8.2% interest rate. The payments were huge, and the balance melted away faster than I thought possible. And then, there was only one left. The final boss. The federal student loan. The very first debt I had ever taken on. The last $10,000 felt surreal. Every payment was a major milestone. I watched the balance drop. $7,500, $4,000, $1,200. My final freelance payment for a big project gave me exactly what I needed to finish it. 2 years, 11 months, and 4 days after that 3 a.m. breakdown, I sat at the same IKEA desk in the same cramped apartment. It was late, just after midnight. I logged into my loan provider's website one last time. The remaining balance was $981, $14. My checking account, thanks to my last paycheck, was healthy. My heart was hammering in my chest. This was it, the final payment. I typed in the amount, my finger hovering over the button. I thought about the hundreds of lonely nights, the thousands of dollars in lattes I didn't drink, the trips I didn't take, the exhaustion, the doubt. It all led to this single click. I submitted the payment. The screen refreshed. Current balance, 0. I stared at the screen for a long time. There were no fireworks. No congratulatory email arrived instantly. The world outside my window sounded exactly the same. But in the quiet of my apartment, a profound shift occurred. A weight I had carried for nearly a decade, a weight that had dictated my choices, fueled my anxiety, and constricted my life, was simply gone. I didn't shout. I didn't celebrate. I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes, and a few silent tears of pure, unadulterated relief rolled down my face. The next morning, I woke up feeling different, lighter. I bought a celebratory coffee from the expensive place near my old office, and it tasted like victory. When my paycheck hit the following week, I just stared at the number, realizing for the first time that it was all mine. Every single dollar belonged to me and my future, not my past. That weekend, I called my dad. "It's done," I said. "I'm completely debt-free." I could hear the pride and relief in his voice, a sound worth more than any dollar amount. I still have the Operation Freedom spreadsheet saved on my computer. I look at it sometimes, a digital monument to the hardest thing I've ever done. Paying off $50,000 was never just about the money. It was about reclaiming my own life. It was about forging discipline, proving my own resilience, and learning the difference between what I wanted in the moment and what I wanted for my future. I learned that financial freedom isn't about being rich. It's about the quiet, powerful privilege of choice. And as I started a new spreadsheet, this one titled Future, I knew, with a certainty that filled my entire being, that I was finally free to choose my own. And as I started a new spreadsheet, this one titled Future, I knew, with a certainty that filled my entire being, that I was finally free to choose my own. This journey was incredibly personal, but I know I'm not the only one who's faced a mountain that seemed impossible to climb. I would be truly honored to read your thoughts on the story and its lessons in the comments below. If you feel comfortable, please share a piece of your own journey, whether it's about finance, discipline, or overcoming any personal challenge. Reading your stories is a powerful reminder that we're all in this together. If this story resonated with you, giving it a like is a huge form of support and helps it reach others who might need a little encouragement today. And of course, if you'd like to join our community for more thoughtful stories like this one, please subscribe so you don't miss what's next. No matter what your own Operation Freedom looks like, I hope this serves as a reminder that the fight is always worth it. Wishing you peace in your struggles and the strength to find the hope that waits on the other side of the chaos. Take care.